You know, as a doctor, I've walked with thousands of patients through some of their hardest moments. But there's one moment I see more often than most. It's not in the hospital, or on the monitor, or even in the numbers. It's that quiet look in their eyes that says, "Is this the beginning of the end?" And I've been there too. Not just as a physician, but as a man in his 70s, watching my own body slow down, stiffen, resist. At 72, I caught myself holding my breath just to tie my shoes. I wasn't in crisis, but I wasn't thriving either. And that's the space no one talks about. The slow fade. The steady shrinking of strength, of breath, of confidence. You might feel it too. That gentle anxiety. Am I losing control of my body? And I'm here to tell you, not with hype, but with certainty. No, you are not. Strength can return. And sometimes it begins not with medicine, but with movement. Gentle, intelligent, daily movement. You see, the body doesn't need punishment to grow strong. It needs consistency. And after 60, one of the most powerful habits you can cultivate for your heart, your blood pressure, your lungs, and your clarity is something almost too simple to believe. Brisk walking. Now I'm not talking about speed walking or the kind of exercise you see in commercials. I mean the kind of walk that gets your heart beating just a little faster. The kind where you can still speak a sentence but feel the rhythm change inside your chest. This isn't better than nothing. This is foundational. Research shows that walking just 20-30 minutes a day at a steady pace can reduce systolic blood pressure by as much as 10 points. That's enough to shift someone from high risk into a much safer zone. And the best part? There are no side effects, no pills, no copays, just you and the path ahead. I remember one of my patients, Thomas, a retired bus driver from Ohio. He lost his wife after 47 years. For 2 months, he barely left the couch. But then one morning, he stood up, laced his shoes, and walked to the end of his street. That's it. No goals, no pressure, just the stop sign at the corner. The next day, he went 2 blocks. 2 weeks later, during our check-in, he said something that stayed with me. I stopped thinking about my blood pressure. I started noticing the birds again. This is what walking does. It doesn't just lower numbers on a chart. It restores perspective. From a physiological standpoint, here's what's happening. You're expanding your lungs, increasing oxygen intake. You're reducing stress hormones like cortisol. You're improving endothelial function, meaning your blood vessels can dilate and contract more easily. And over time, you're retraining your autonomic nervous system to calm more quickly after exertion. But science aside, walking heals the part of us that's been told, you can't. And if you walk with someone, a neighbor, a spouse, a dog, you add an even more potent layer, social connection. You see, loneliness is a cardiovascular risk factor. I say that clinically and personally. The heart suffers when we isolate. But movement, especially movement shared, reconnects us. And I'll say this, doctor to patient, human to human. You don't need a smartwatch or a perfect outfit. You don't need 5 miles. You don't even need a sidewalk. You need a doorway, a hallway, a few steps, and the decision to begin. The magic of walking is not in the miles. It's in the momentum. Every step forward sends a neurological signal to the brain. I'm still here. I still care. So if you've been still too long or scared to start, try just one loop today. Around your kitchen, your porch, or your hallway. Let your legs remember. Let your lungs respond. And let your heart gently, do what it was built to do. Because when you walk with intention, the body listens. And more importantly, the fear begins to quiet. The second movement I recommend is one that often gets overlooked. It's not glamorous. It won't go viral. But in my clinical experience, it's one of the most important things a person over 60 can do to maintain independence. It's called the chair squat. And I want to tell you why it matters far more than you might think. You see, one of the quiet fears many of my older patients carry, though few say it out loud, is the fear of falling and not being able to get back up. And I understand. That fear doesn't just live in the body. It starts to live in the mind. It makes people hesitate, avoid stairs, avoid public spaces, even avoid movement itself. And slowly, that fear begins to replace freedom. Chair squats are how we take that freedom back, one controlled movement at a time. Let me be clear. This is not about bodybuilding or personal records. This is about being able to rise, to stand up, to step forward without bracing yourself on furniture or feeling like you're gambling with gravity. Let me tell you about Ada. Ada was 81 when she came into my office. Her daughter had noticed she always grabbed the countertop before standing. She said, "It's just habit." But her eyes said, "I'm afraid." We started with 5 chair squats a day. Just 5. The movement is simple. You stand in front of a sturdy chair, slowly lower yourself down until you're just above the seat, then stand back up. Arms can be out front for balance, or crossed if you prefer. She didn't like it at first. She wobbled. She got frustrated, but she kept going. 3 weeks later, Ada stood up from that same chair. No hands, no fear. She smiled. Not because of the strength, but because of the confidence. That's what we're building here. Not just leg muscles, inner assurance. From a medical perspective, here's what's happening when you do chair squats. You're engaging the quadriceps, glutes, and calves, the largest muscles in the body. These muscles act like a second heart, helping blood return upward to your core. This reduces venous pooling, lowers blood pressure, and supports overall circulation. You're also improving balance, joint mobility, and proprioception. That's your body's sense of position in space. And perhaps most importantly, you're training your body for the real world. Getting up from a chair, a toilet, a bed. Things we take for granted until we can't. And I want to say this, gently but clearly. Losing the ability to rise unassisted is often the first step toward losing independence. But it doesn't have to be. A few squats a day can change the trajectory. Start with a tall chair. Keep your knees aligned with your toes. Don't rush. Control matters more than depth. If 5 feels like too many, do 3. If 3 feels like too many, do 1. That 1 rep is not small. It's a vote for your body, your dignity, your future. And if you wobble, good. That means your brain is learning. Balance isn't built by staying still. It's built by gentle struggle. Some people ask me, "Doctor, how long do I have to do these?" And my answer is always the same. Do them until you no longer question your ability to stand on your own. Then keep going. For confidence, not just capability. You don't need a gym. You don't need a schedule. You need a chair, a few minutes, and a willingness to believe in the body again. That's medicine. Not the kind I write on a pad, but the kind your body writes for itself. The third movement I recommend is one that surprises many people, because it targets a part of the body we often forget about as we age. The chest, the shoulders, the arms, the upper spine. It's called the wall push-up. And no, it's not just for athletes or younger folks trying to build muscle. In fact, I'd argue that this simple movement might matter more for someone in their 60s, 70s, or beyond, because it does more than strengthen muscle. It reclaims posture, breath, and presence. Let me explain. As we get older, our bodies naturally begin to curl inward. Our shoulders roll. Our chest collapse slightly. Our head juts forward. It happens slowly, subtly. We don't even notice it at first. But over time, that subtle collapse changes everything. Our lungs lose capacity. Our blood pressure shifts. Our balance suffers. Even our confidence fades. Wall push-ups reverse that curve. They're not flashy, but they work. Here's how. You stand about an arm's length away from a wall. Place your palms on the wall at shoulder height, shoulder width apart. Slowly bend your elbows, leaning your body toward the wall, keeping your spine straight, core engaged. Then press back. That's one rep. You're not just working the chest and triceps. You're inviting your body to open again, to stand tall again, to breathe deeply again. I think of my patient Joseph when I teach this. Joseph had open heart surgery at 74, a quiet man. He didn't talk much about the recovery, but I remember one day he said, "I feel smaller now, not just physically, like I'm not taking up space." That struck me. We started doing wall push-ups together, 10 each morning, right in his kitchen. He'd finish them in silence. But after 2 weeks, I noticed something else. He stood taller. His voice was stronger. He looked up more. He walked into the room differently. He wasn't just regaining strength. He was reclaiming space. Physiologically, here's what's happening. Wall push-ups increase blood flow to the upper body. They engage the stabilizing muscles around the shoulder girdle, which improves posture and breathing mechanics. They also stimulate the diaphragm indirectly, helping you breathe deeper, more efficiently. That, in turn, calms the nervous system. And a calm nervous system supports heart health. In other words, your posture is not just cosmetic, it's cardioprotective. These push-ups also help manage blood pressure. In clinical settings, we see that light resistance training like this can improve endothelial function, the lining of your blood vessels, making them more elastic, more responsive, more alive. I often tell patients, every time you push away from the wall, you're not just building strength. You're reminding your body how to resist collapse, physically and emotionally. Start with 5. If that feels easy, do 10. You don't need to break a sweat. You need to build a signal, a pattern of movement that tells your chest, we still expand here. And if your shoulders feel stiff, that's okay. Go slower, go smaller, modify the angle, take breaks, but don't skip it, because the chest is where breath begins, and breath is where life returns. Wall push-ups aren't about the arms. They're about the dignity of uprightness, the quiet pride of someone who chooses not to fold in. So put your hands on the wall tomorrow morning, or right now, and press gently, steadily, with purpose. Because each push says, I'm not shrinking, I'm still here. Now, let's move lower, down to the legs. If there's one part of the body that quietly carries more weight than we realize, it's our legs. Not just physically, but emotionally. Because when our legs begin to weaken, we feel it everywhere. In our stride, in our spirit, in our sense of control. That's why the 4th movement I recommend is deceptively simple, but deeply powerful. It's called the standing leg raise. You don't need weights. You don't need a mat. just a wall or chair for support and a willingness to move with intention. Here's how it works. Stand tall, hold the back of a chair, or rest your fingertips on a wall. Slowly lift one leg out to the side, just a few inches off the floor. Pause for a moment, then lower it, gently. Repeat on the other side. You're not kicking, you're not swinging. You're lifting, with control, with awareness, with dignity. I remember Maria, 79, former elementary school teacher. She told me she used to feel proud of her walk, but over time, she began holding onto rails. She avoided curbs. Then one day, she said, I didn't want to walk outside anymore. I felt fragile, and I hated feeling fragile. We started with side leg raises, 10 per side, twice a day. She thought they were too simple to matter. 3 weeks later, she walked into my office without using the rail. She didn't mention it. She just stood taller. And when I asked her how she felt, she said, I don't feel fragile. I feel like I've got fire in my legs again. And that's what these raises do. They awaken the fire, the stabilizers, the foundation. Medically, what's happening is significant. Leg raises activate the gluteus medius and minimus, muscles essential for lateral balance. These small muscles stabilize the pelvis, reduce strain on the lower back, and improve stride integrity. They also increase circulation in the lower limbs, key for preventing swelling, varicose veins, and pooling that can increase pressure on the heart. Additionally, when you train each leg independently, you develop proprioception, your body's sense of its position. That's what keeps you upright when the pavement is uneven, or when the dog tugs unexpectedly, or when you stand too quickly. These aren't exercises for aesthetics. These are movements for autonomy. Do 10 on each side, once or twice daily. Hold the lift for a second or two. Focus on smooth, controlled motion. If your hip feels tight, limit the height. If balance is difficult, lean on a wall. But do them. Because when your legs grow stronger, your life opens up again. Grocery stores feel less intimidating. Sidewalks feel safe. Even your breath changes, because fear loosens its grip. And maybe most importantly, you start walking with a different rhythm. One not ruled by caution, but by quiet confidence. I often tell my patients, strong legs don't just help you stand. They help you say yes to movement, to momentum, to life. So try it now, if you can. Stand by your kitchen counter. Lift one leg, just a few inches. Hold, lower, breathe, then switch. Each lift is a reminder. You are not broken. You are not done. You are still building, still standing, still strong. And in my medical opinion, that kind of strength, the kind rooted in quiet repetition and self-trust, is more powerful than any prescription I can write. We return now to the wall, not because we've run out of ideas, but because repetition builds rhythm, and rhythm builds resilience. I often revisit this movement with patients, because sometimes doing the same action again, on a different day, in a different state of mind, gives us a new kind of strength. This time, I want you to think about your breath as much as your arms, because this variation of the wall push-up is less about strength and more about spaciousness. Here's what I mean. Place your palms flat on the wall. Step back slightly. Keep your feet grounded and your spine long. As you inhale, bend your elbows. Lean forward, slowly. As you exhale, press away, deliberately, not forcefully. Feel the opening in your chest. Feel your lungs expand. Feel your spine reclaiming its natural posture. This is not just physical. This is postural medicine. This is saying to the world and to yourself, I deserve to take up space. There's a man I see monthly, Darius, age 68. He started doing wall push-ups during commercial breaks just to feel less stiff. But over time, something changed. He told me, I breathe deeper now. I carry groceries with one hand again. I look at people when I talk. That's what this movement does. It's not about biceps. It's about how you meet the world. You push away from the wall? Yes, but in doing so, you push back against resignation, against the urge to fold in, against the idea that your body no longer listens. And guess what? Your body does listen. It has been all along. Medically, repeating this movement strengthens the pectoral and deltoid muscles, improves scapular mobility, and enhances upper thoracic alignment. But beyond that, it gently trains respiratory expansion and neurological coordination. This is how we protect the heart, by giving the rib cage room to expand, by telling the nervous system, you are safe, you are upright, you are home. So return to the wall, not for more reps, but for more meaning. Start with 3, end with presence, because when you move your body in this way, you are not exercising, you are remembering. Now, let's close. You've just heard 5 simple movements, nothing extreme, nothing trendy, nothing you haven't seen before. But I want you to hear this clearly. From a doctor who has spent decades watching what works and what fades. Consistency is medicine. Gentleness is strength. And movement, real, sustainable, mindful movement, is not optional after 60. It's essential. Not to extend life, but to restore the quality within it. This isn't about living forever. It's about being present while you live. So walk, even if it's only across the room. Squat, even if it's only once. Lift your legs. Press the wall. Stand tall. Each action, no matter how small, sends a message to your heart, your muscles, your brain. I'm still here. I still matter. I still move forward. And let me say this. If you've made it this far in the video, you're not just listening for information. You're listening for permission to begin. So let me offer it now, doctor to patient. You're allowed to start small. You're allowed to begin again. You're allowed to want more strength, not to impress anyone, but to return home to your body. If one of these movements spoke to you, tell me which one. Not because I need the data, but because someone else reading your comment might realize I'm not the only one starting over. And if this video helped you breathe easier, even for a few moments, subscribe. Not just for more content, but for reminders like this. Reminders that your heart is listening, that your body still responds, and that healing, even now, is possible.